type of bonds that we have talked earlier. Probably you might find the name changed a little bit. Do you remember when we talk about implicit and explicit interest rate? Implicit interest rate is the interest that these zero coupon bonds have. So the value of the interest is not separately given. However, there is a difference between the face value and this discount price. That amount is not stated in terms of percentage. That's why on the coupon on the bond, there is not, or you cannot find anything that tells you the interest rate separately or that states separately. However, on the interest-bearing bond, the interest rate is separately stated on the bond. Again, if you don't know more about the interest-bearing bond, I have made a video. I'll put a link in the description, or you can click here, that tells you everything about bonds, how bonds work. So interest-bearing bonds are the bonds where the interest is stated separately, explicitly, not implicitly or being included in the discount, in the difference on the discount and the face value. However, the difference between the interest rate is separately stated on the bond contract or the bond coupon, or the coupon interest rate is stated. It might be fixed or floating. However, if it is fixed, if it has fixed interest, it might be callable or puttable or term bond type. However, if it has a floating interest means it has some base. It has a base. For example, if the base is LIBOR rates, this means it's an interest rate that London banks borrow. So if on the bond indenture, if there is LIBOR rate plus 2 stated on the coupon, this means after some year, if the London bank interest rates goes up, so we should pay an interest that is 2% greater than this London banking rate. It says LIBOR rate plus 2. So whenever the London banking rate fluctuates, the price or the interest we pay as an issuer will also vary. However, if it is fixed interest rate, if it's 8%, nothing will change this amount, even if the market rate fluctuates or not. That's why we might have callable and puttable bonds in this kind of scenarios. Also, bonds can be classified based on their security. Some bonds are secured. Probably the issuer might hold some collateral, the holder, if the issuer fails to pay the face amount at maturity. The other one is unsecured. Unsecured bonds are known as debentures. This is when the holder doesn't hold any collateral that help him to take whenever the issuer fails to meet its obligation at the maturity. That's why we call debentures are risky, because there is no collateral here. Finally, based on maturity, it might be classified as perpetual or traditional. Perpetual means console bonds. Console bonds are a bond that has indefinite maturity. However, traditional or term bonds or other bonds might have some limited or specific time that the bond is settled. This is all about bond. So let's talk about shares. We have seen a lot of things about shares at the start. There is something called IPO, seasonal offer. We have talked about this in our financial market sections in the previous videos. Based on the time issued, it might be classified as initial public offer or seasonal offer. I'll put the link in the description, or you can click here. Based on where the bonds are issued, can be classified as primary market equity instruments or secondary market equity instruments. There is also something called a bearer stocks and register stocks. Register stocks means an equity that the name of the holder is written on the share. However, bearer shares doesn't have the name of the holder and easily marketable. There is also preferred share and ordinary share or common stock. It's hard to classify preferred stock in the equity instrument because as an equity instrument, because they have both the nature of debt instrument and equity instrument. treasury. Preferred stocks pays a fixed amount or a fixed rate, most of the time a fixed rate of the initial investment, which makes it similar to bonds. So it's in between equity shares or ordinary share in bond. It has both of these natures, both of these securities nature, so it's hard to classify them as a bond or equity. So let's look at an ordinary shares. An ordinary shares will stay a lifetime. This means it doesn't mean the holder should keep the share until he dies. It doesn't mean that, but as long as the company continues, once the shares are issued, probably they might be transferred from one investor to another investor, but they will remain in a lifetime, so they don't have a maturity like bonds. However, if it's bond, once the maturity is reached, the liability will be settled by the issuer and it will end up in a maturity and will not stay for the lifetime like equity shares. There is another kind of a preferred stock. Participative preferred stock is unlike other preferred stocks. It has a return fixed rate or fixed amount. Participative preferred stock might also have a return if the company has higher profit. Sometimes these participative preferred stockholders might get more profit than this fixed rate amount, unlike other preferred stockholders. Thus, most of the time, preferred stockholders will only receive this fixed rate and they don't have voting rights. However, ordinary shares or common stocks have a voting right in the company. I will put the link in the description, or you can click here when I will explain more in the financial management course. There are also redeemable preferred stock and convertible preferred stocks. This kind of preferred stocks are the preferred stocks that holder can convert into cash by selling the share to the company again. So the holder will return this preferred stock to the issuer and take his money back, or he can convert to cash. Convert to cash means he can sell to the company, get his cash again, what he has originally invested. So a preferred stock that gives this kind of right for the holder are called a redeemable preferred stocks. A convertible preferred stocks are when a preferred stocks that allows the holder to convert, or it's an option for the holder can convert it to ordinary common stock, means, or to ordinary shares, or to common stocks, any other financial security. This means if the holders exercise this power, we can say that he has already converted his preferred stocks. That's why they are called a convertible preferred stocks. There are kinds of preferred stocks. So ordinary shares or common stock can also be classified as type A, type B, type C. This means based on their value, the holder that bought type A common stock might have more voting rights than the holders of type B and type C instruments or common stocks. This has more value, this has a little bit less value, this has much less value when making a voting right, because common stocks allows the investor to reflect his idea or exercise the option to vote. Again, it's better if you watch my financial management video. So in equity, what do shareholders might be benefited from having one company's common stock? And investors might be income oriented or capital oriented investors. And income oriented investors are the one who seeks for regular payments like a dividend. However, capital oriented investors are the one who wants to be benefited from the capital appreciation or the share. For example, if the share price was $80 and next year if it becomes $100, they can be benefited from selling that share. This is called capital gain, because if I buy this share with $80 and sell it in at $100 in the secondary market, I've got $20 because of this capital appreciation. That's what it's called a capital gain. Shareholders also might be benefited from the company. For example, a company might provide a situation where shareholders buy or use the company's product at a discount. When I say discount, Count, I'm not talking about a financial asset, but the company who sells its shares might have its own operation. Probably he might serving a product or giving a service. Probably he might also offer for the shareholder to use this service and products at a discount than what other people are using. Voting right is also another benefit that shareholders can get from the company. Sometimes shareholders can vote using this technique, voting by proxy, which means when a common stockholders vote by appointing an agent for them rather than directly voting. Shareholders has also a primitive right. This is what a shareholder has. You know that a voting right can be expressed in terms of percentage. So if the company has issued total shares of 100 and if I bought 20 of them, this means I have 20% voting right in that company. When the company wants to issue additional shares, this means the number of common stock issued previously were 100, so if the company wants to add more 100 or if the company wants to issue more numbers of common stocks, that is 100 plus 100, it will be 200. This means finally after the company issues these shares, the total outstanding share of this company will be 200. If I still have 20, if I still have these 20 shares, my voting rights will get down from 20%, means 20 divided by the total common stock issued, which is 20%. It will get down and become 20 divided by 200, which is 10%. So my voting right will decrease from 20% to 10%. To avoid this issue, the company will give its primary equity shareholders a primitive right. This means when the company issues this 100 shares, the first thing that he have to do is primarily to offer these shares for his existing shareholders, depending on their proportion. So depending on my proportion, if the company do not want me to lose my voting rights when he issues these 100 shares, from this 100 issued from this newly issued 100 shares, he will provide these 20 shares for me, or the company gives the priority to buy for of these newly issued shares for his existing shareholders. So if the existing shareholders do not want their voting right to decline, they will accept this offer and buy the shares. For example, if the company offers me from this 100 shares, if the company offers me 20 of these shares, this means I primarily have these 20 shares. When the company issues these 100 shares, he will offer primarily, or he will give the priority for me to buy this. He will offer the shares for me first without offering to the market. So if I bought these 20 shares, I will have 40 shares in total. So this 40 divided by 200, which is the total outstanding shares that are present at this time, I maintain this 20% still. This is what the company should do for me, not to lose or my voting right to decline, to prevent this issue. However, if the company do not give me the priority to buy, for example, other investors might vote this share and my voting right might decline from 20% to 10%. So primitive right is also one of the rights or the benefits that equity shareholders might get. So don't forget the topic we are talking about common stocks, not preferred stocks. There is also something called share repurchase and stock split. Sometimes the company might engage in share-based payment. Share-based payment means, as an usual practice, we pay a cash for a product or service we used from other parties. But after receiving the products or using the service, the company might give its shares rather than paying the cash for the service provider. If the company is doing this, this will increase the total shares outstanding because a new member is invited as a company's shareholder, which is the service provider. This will decrease the earning per share. If the company gets a profit, he will distribute to its shareholders in forms of dividend or a capital gain. However, when the members becomes too much, this profit will be distributed to many shareholders, might decrease earning. if the company makes a share-based payment, you know that usually dividends are paid in terms of cash. However, sometimes a company might pay its dividend in terms of share. This will not dilute the voting rights of the existing shareholders, as we have seen in a previous primitive right case. However, the voting right, because every shareholders will get its proportional dividend, so in the total it will not create imbalance that allows to dilute the voting rights of existing shareholders. However, the number of shares outstanding in the company will increase because additional shares are issued in order to pay the dividend for the existing shareholders. So as you have seen in the previous, whenever the outstanding shares has increased, whenever outstanding shares increase, the earning per share decline. Sometimes the company might also give an option. If that company issued bond which is convertible, that we have seen in previously, if the bondholders want to convert this bond to shares, or if he wants to exercise this option, he will convert the bond to the share. This will increase the number of shares issued in the company, because additional shares is issued for these bondholders when he exercises this option. This will also increase the amount of the total outstanding shares, that increases the earning per share. Remember, whenever the total outstanding shares increases, the earning per share will decline, because you prorate the earning or the profit of the company to different shareholders. It might not necessarily be a shareholders, however, to different number of shares, because in this case we have seen that the number of outstanding shares might increase without including or adding any new shareholders. However, hence earning per share is the earning or the total earning divided by each number of shares. When the number of shares increases, the total earning per share will decline, which is the earning that one share might bring. Stock split and second topic is about stock split and secondary offer. Both of these two things might affect the existing shareholders. We have talked too much about this secondary offer. Secondary offer is when a company shares are issued again by the company itself for the second time after the initial public offer shares have been sold or has been sold. As long as the company doesn't maintain the primitive right of the existing shareholder, which are the holders of this initial public offer shares, the secondary offer might dilute their voting rights, which affects the existing shareholders. This is how secondary offer affects the existing shareholders. Stock split can also affect, because stock split is splitting the stock. This time the company will have too much outstanding shares but with a lost price. Rather than selling one share with $8, the company started to sell two shares with $4. This means the company deliberately lowers the price of the share, the price of individual shares, however, increase the number of shares outstanding. So for the existing shareholders, when the company splits its stock, for example, if I have one stock that can value $8, when the company undergoes stock splits, the company will give me one additional stock, because when the split happens, this $8 share I have has now a value of $4 because of the split. So the company should pay me, or should give me one of its shares for me to have the value of my initial investment, or $8 stocks. Because if the company do not give me this $4 or one share, I bought the share with $8, but the share now values $4. This means the company should give me one additional share for me to have a share amounts that match with my initial investment. However, still this dilutes the existing shareholders' voting rights. How? Because when the split happens, too much shares will be sold in the market, because the price is low right now. So people want to buy this share, which is their demand will rise. The demand for the share will rise. As more and more investors start to buy this share, my voting right might also decline unless I exercised my primitive right. So now we have finished about the equity. You can express a stock split when a company issues additional shares and makes the price affordable to the market by splitting the existing value of the share or the stock price. As we have seen before, the company might engage in share-based payments, or he can pay the dividends in terms of share, or he might also give a share options, the right to convert other securities into the company's share. However, when the company makes all of these payments that are settled using shares, which might dilute the voting rights of the existing shareholders, because here you cannot apply primitive rights, because primitive rights is given when the company sells its shares. But now the company is not selling its shares, rather making different payments or settling different payments using its shares. This times it's better to make a share repurchase rather than issuing a new shares, which dilutes the voting rights of existing shareholders. The shares that are bought back again by the company are called the treasury shares. The treasury shares are repurchased shares. This might mostly increases earning per share because the total outstanding shares in the markets are low when they are repurchased. And after the company bought the shares, he can make a share-based payment and other payments using the shares that he repurchased from the investors rather than issuing a new shares, which dilutes the existing shareholders' voting right. And these treasury shares are repurchased again in the secondary market. The company itself goes into the secondary market where different investors sell their securities with one another. Directly, the company buys its own shares from them in the secondary market. It's difficult to apply this if there is no secondary market, the treasury share ideas. The investors that are engaged in the secondary market might be also stock traders, which probably might be daily traders or overnight traders, depending on the time they make their investments. So don't think treasury shares are as shares which is issued by the government. For the bond, that's okay. For the bond, there is something called treasury bill, which is a short-term money market instrument. There is also treasury bond. This treasury indicates that this is issued by the government. However, this is not a money market instrument. Treasury bonds is not a short-term money market instrument. However, it is a capital market instrument. Bond here indicates that it has a maturity period longer than 1 year, and treasury represents that is issued by the government, by federal government. Mostly this matures from 5 to 10 years. However, treasury bills mature within 90 days or for short term, which is less than 1 year. The government might also issue a municipal bond. This is issued mostly by city administrations, not by the government. If the government issue any bond, we can call that as treasury bond rather. So treasury bills are less risky rather than treasury bond because of the length of time. Both of them are treasury which are issued by the government. This makes the risk lesser, but bonds are a capital market instrument which last for 5 to 10 years. However, bills are a short-term instruments. So when the time of maturity is less, the risk will also be less. You know that a government bond is default free. There is no default risk in a government, because even if the government doesn't have the money to pay back to its bondholder, he can also print money as the last option. But for this doesn't work in international level. If the government sells its shares in international market for others, foreign investors, or in foreign country, the government cannot now print a money like in the national market. In the national market, the currency is a local market. I mean a local currency, so you can print the money. However, you cannot print the money in international market. So government can also default in international. So government's creditworthiness is also evaluated. If it's DDD or less credit rated, foreign countries might ask a government to pay more interest to compensate the risk of investing their money to an entity which is not credit worthy. Remember that when we talk about credit down risk, which shows the inverse relation between the credit rating and the interest asked. If the credit rating is low, investors require more return in order to compensate the risk or the high risk of default. If we talk about selling the bond in international market, let's look at these bonds. International bond is any bond that can be sold in international market or in foreign country. For example, if Ethiopia sells its share and the shares are sold in America, the bond can be sorry, I said shares, I want to say bond. The bond can be named as an international bond. This international bond can be foreign bond or euro bond. Foreign bond is, as the name indicates, the currency that this bond will, or the currency that is used to sell this bond is not a local currency, rather it is a foreign currency, which is different from the local currency of the issuer. For example, if Ethiopia sells its shares in America, when I say other than its local currency, or I mean to say the currency that this bond is being sold. For example, if Ethiopia sells its shares in America, if the bond, if the bond is dominated using the American dollar, it can be called as a foreign bond. A foreign bond means the issuer is transacting is bond in other country, consider this other country as a foreign, and if the money is in that other country's currency, it can be called foreign in America. However, if it is different from America, it might be within Ethiopian birr, or it might be in pounds or any other thing, but other than this foreign country's currency, in this case for the foreign country is America, if it is other than this foreign country's currency, it can be called as it is known as a euro bond. We know that a domestic bond is not a foreign, is not categorized under international bond. It is when the issuer transacts its bonds in its own country. With this, we conclude our discussion on financial assets. Previously, we have seen that the financial market, financial institutions, and financial assets, which are the main components of the financial system. Now that it's time to look at the financial regulations, which is the remaining component of the financial system. Okay, let's start